Thank you, everyone, for joining this public meeting for the re-release of the draft integrated feasibility report for the Oakland Harbor Turning Basins widening study. We are going to give everyone a few minutes to join, and we will get started soon. So maybe 1 or 2 minutes. And Laura, I'm going to wait to hear when we have potentially a quorum, which is at least 50 or 60% of the number of people that registered. Thank you.
Will do.
Thank you for joining the public meeting for the re-release of the draft integrated feasibility report for the Oakland Harbor Turning Basins widening study. We're going to give everyone, or we're giving everyone 1 or 2 minutes to join. We'll get started soon. I believe someone has their hand raised. Mr. Wilson, you have your hand raised?
Yes, I'm just getting in line for the public comments.
Oh, absolutely. That's great. We'll make sure that we have you down as having raised your hand very early. So I believe Luana is helping with that. So thank you. Laura?
Yeah, so it looks like we have 41 people, which gives us a 50, almost, I think we have critical mass to begin our meeting.
Critical mass, okay.
Yes.
And if anyone knows on the call of anyone that's having trouble calling in, please put it in the chat box, maybe put their email in the chat box, and we'll make sure to send them an invite if they're having any trouble. All right, so again, thank you all for joining the Oakland Harbor Turning Basins Winding Feasibility Study, the re-release of this draft report. And thank you, Laura. I know this is a really tough time to attend a meeting. My name is Erica Powell, and I'm part of the study team. We really appreciate you joining us this evening. We know this is the end of the day. We've got family and other responsibilities, so we really appreciate you taking the time out. And we know that this is a very important meeting to you, so we're all here for you to be able to provide any clarification to the information that's been presented thus far. So we have several members of the Port of Oakland study team, and we have several members of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers study team. For the Port of Oakland, Justin Tashek, would you like to introduce your team, please?
Great, thank you for that introduction, Erica. Appreciate everybody here on the meeting tonight. Everybody's time is valuable, and we appreciate everyone being with us here tonight on this re-release public meeting for the re-release of the draft report. Justin Tashik, I'm in the Maritime Division for the Port of Oakland, serving as project manager for the port, who is also serving as a partner with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers on this feasibility study that we will discuss tonight. Here with me in the meeting room with all of us are some of our leads for the project team. I would just, by way of time allowed, I'll introduce them. But we do have our environmental lead, Camley Shuup, on the call. We also have our project manager of the delivery of projects on the call. Jason Garbin is with us today as well. And we have engineering leads with us here tonight, Edwin Draper and Fanny Yu with us here. So again, reiterating, everybody's time is valuable, and I want to extend a big thank you for being with us here tonight. Back to you, Erica.
Thank you, Justin. And on our side, we have several members of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers project delivery team. With us, we have Jason Emmons. We have Sasha Voigt. Eric Jolliffe, he's our lead environmental person. We have Jessica McCaffrey. She's our lead planner. And then, and myself, Erica Powell. I believe that's all that we have for the Corps of Engineers. All right. Oh, should also have Barney. We have other team members as well to help answer questions. So before I get started, before I begin, I'd like to go over the meeting format. Today we are using the Zoom webinar, and we have closed captioning available. And the way that works, to enable that feature, you click Live Transcript, then select Show Subtitles. And if you'd like to view the full transcript of the meeting, on the side panel, click View Full Transcript. In addition, we also have translation services tonight. We have Miss Carnation that is going to be helping with Cantonese translation.
Sorry to interrupt, Erica. Can you just go to the next slide and now I'll give the instructions.
Thank you so much, Patty. So Patty will provide the instructions better than I can. So thank you, Patty.
No problem. Thank you for coming. As Erica mentioned, we have Cantonese and Spanish live interpretation available right now. The Spanish interpreter is already in the Spanish channel. One moment, while give the instructions in those languages. Gracias por asistir a esta reunión. Tenemos interpretación disponible simultáneamente al español. Para tener acceso a ese canal, simplemente haga clic en la figurita del mundito en la parte de su pantalla, de abajo de su pantalla, y de ahí seleccione Spanish o español. Si quiere silenciar el audio original, Por favor, haga clic en Mute Original Audio o silenciar audio original para no escuchar el inglés en un volumen más bajo. Le vamos a pedir encarecidamente que por favor se quede en el canal de español, si es que solamente habla español, para posteriormente hacer cualquier pregunta o comentario si así sea necesario y lo quiera hacer. Now I would like to ask Carnation to please give the instructions in Cantonese.
各位好，多謝大家參加今晚嘅研討會。今晚嘅研討會將會為大家提供西班牙語同埋廣東話嘅口譯服務。如果大家係使用電腦參加研討會嘅話，就將會見到紅色字1嗰個嘅地球圖示。如果係使用手機登入嘅話咧，就會見到3點，就係更多嗰一個選項嘅。咁就喺會議或者網絡研討會中嘅選項，大家可以按一下選擇口譯。然後第2步就係按一下你所想要聽嘅語言，中文。第3呢一個咧係非必要嘅步驟。如果大家只係想聽口譯嘅內容，就請你撳一下關閉原始音頻 Mute Original Audio。Thank you.
Carnation, Luana, if you could please make Carnation Cantonese interpreter right now. I would like to remind everyone who speaks English to please speak slowly. If you speak too fast, the interpretation will also go too fast, which means that there is going to be some text that will be missed in the interpretation. So please keep that in mind, especially if you're reading off scripts. We usually tend to speak faster when we read from a script or when we read from anything else. So it is very important to speak slowly for the interpreters. If there's going to be a comment in Chinese, in Cantonese, or in Spanish later on in the meeting, you will only be able to hear the interpretation into English of those comments if you go to the English channel. So to go to the English channel, all you need to do is click on the world icon, and from there, select English. If you're using a smartphone, all you need to do is click on the area with the 3 dots, and from there, select the world icon, and then select English. So all of us, everyone who speaks English, whether you're a participant, a panelist, a host, let's all go to the English channel by selecting the world icon and going into English. This concludes the multi-language instructions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Patty. Really appreciate that. And I actually appreciate the reminder because I tend to talk fast. So thank you for letting me know. Here's our agenda for today. Before I go on to agenda, we do have one other team member that I failed to mention, Barney Ware. He's our lead, engineering lead. So in the agenda, so here's our agenda for the meeting today. We'll provide a high-level overview of what has changed from the first release to the second release. And that information can also be found on page 6 of the executive summary. Also, we will, you can also find the responses to comments from the first draft in the report in Appendix A10, Appendix A10, sections A, B, and C. It's in 3 sections. So that's a great place to start. If you have a question, it may have been addressed in those comments. And then we'll host a public comment discussion, which will give stakeholders the opportunity to provide their comments. We'll go through the instructions on how to provide comments during this virtual meeting and following the meeting as well. We strongly encourage you to submit your comments in writing if possible, so that they can be captured the way that you intended. Now I'm going to hand off the mic to our lead planner, Jessica McCaffrey.
Thanks, Erica. I guess Erica said, my name is Jessica McCaffrey. I'm the lead planner for this project. So far to date, we've had quite a few public engagement meetings with different resource agency working groups and different groups of resource agency coordination, interagency coordination team meetings, and meetings with community stakeholders and neighborhoods. So this is what we've done to date, and also includes tonight. Next. As Erica mentioned, we would appreciate comments in writing. That helps ensure that it's captured the way that you intend it to be captured. You can find the project report on the US Army Corps of Engineers website at this address here, or also at the port's website following that second address. You can email comments to Oakland Harbor Turning Basins Study at usace.army.mil. Or you may mail them to Mr. Eric Jolliffe at 450 Golden Gate Avenue, 4th floor, San Francisco, California, 94102. And just a quick reminder that our comment period does close this coming Friday, June 16th. As mentioned up top, we did release this draft report previously as a result of public comment and reevaluating our footprints for the basins. We did end up shifting the basin footprint. This resulted in a number of changes throughout the report and the requirement to re-release. Some of the highlights on changes that were made in the report, first, there's a handful of those that were made due to requests from stakeholders. This included a discussion on the potential for impacts on growth, a greenhouse gas emissions analysis, draft health risk assessment in the air quality appendix, and cumulative impacts was separated to be its own section to help with readability. Some of the changes to the report that were due specifically to the basin shift, where we now have an in-water wall along the Schnitzer Steel site. Impacts, as a result, impacts to wildlife, including noise assessment from in-water pile driving, was updated. Additionally, we have an updated project description. This reflects the shifted widening areas for both turning basins. Additionally, we've completed our 404B1 analysis and water quality certification. All of these changes are summarized in the executive summary on page 6 of the executive summary. This is our project area. The Oakland Harbor Channel bounds the Port of Oakland, shown in red. So to the west and south are the outer and inner harbor channels, respectively. The Port of Oakland is separated from the West Oakland community by the Interstate 880 that runs to its eastern border. And then to the south, Alameda is across the channel. So some of the problems in Oakland Harbor, or rather the problems that Oakland Harbor is facing right now, are caused by length limitations on the inner and outer turning basins. The challenge comes that we've had a shifting number of a growing number of ships that exceed what the turning basins that exist were designed for. So as you can see here, the ships coming in are closer to 1,300 feet, a little bit above where we designed for 1,100 feet. As far as capacity, these ships do have a much larger capacity. And this results in fewer vessels to transport cargo. So some of the challenges that are faced by these larger vessels is because the turning basin's not adequately sized for them, they have to have additional operational restrictions. This results in delays while we wait for the correct time of day. And weather conditions in order to safely navigate the channel. Additionally, another pilot is required to navigate these ships in. And then there are delays not only to these larger vessels, but to smaller vessels that have to wait on these vessels to enter and exit. All in all, that ends up with more idling time for large and smaller ships. This is an overview of our basin footprints. Our previous footprint is shown in green here on the left for the outer harbor turning basin. It was shifted a little bit to the north and it's shown in blue for the outer harbor here. On the right, show the inner harbor with our previous footprint shown in purple and the current proposed footprint in red. So one of the concerns that we've heard from the public is that the turning basins could induce growth. What's important to understand is that turning basins do allow for efficient navigation. They don't change the amount of cargo being transported or that can be handled. So the turning basins are not removing a barrier to growth. They aren't changing economic or market conditions. They're just allowing us to safely navigate the ships that are already visiting. So our draft recommended plan includes widening of both the inner and outer harbor turning basins. The Port of Oakland has requested the use of electric dredges. This will be funded by the Port of Oakland. We will be incorporating beneficial reuse of clean and tested dredge sediment. This amounts to approximately 2.2 million cubic yards of sediment. This will contribute to restoration of approximately 279 acres of wetlands. If you want like a kind of more relatable idea of what that size might be, it's over 200 football fields. In addition, beneficial reuse, because it's helping build wetlands or restore wetlands rather, it does provide some additional sea level rise resiliency benefits. Overall, we expect this project to stretch across 3 construction seasons, starting in 2027 with an anticipated end in 2029. So the slide shows a comparison between our alternatives on greenhouse gas emissions, specifically CO2, which comprises 98% of the greenhouse gas emissions for this project. As you can see, the no action alternative at the bottom in blue has the highest level of CO2 emissions. Our alternatives that include widening the inner, outer, or both harbors will result in reduced emissions. This is primarily due to the reduction in idling times that are currently being experienced in the harbors. This analysis doesn't incorporate reductions due to future conditions of this state of California requirement to phase out diesel dredging. There will be, or not diesel dredging, excuse me. There will be cleaner burning engines starting after 2030. This will further reduce emissions, but we would expect to see a reduction across all alternatives. Similarly, we have not incorporated the effects of wetland sequestration of CO2. Further reducing our emissions. But again, that would be across the, well, it wouldn't be across the no action alternative, but it would be across the alternatives with respect to the inner harbor, outer harbor. We've incorporated some best management practices to reduce overall impacts. Specifically, the use of electric dredges has been requested. These will help us avoid some of the construction-related emissions in the West Oakland community, which is already disproportionately impacted by poor air quality. Additionally, we've incorporated noise and dust minimization measures to reduce the overall impact on air quality. This is an overview of our schedule. We are currently in the feasibility study phase of the project. We expect to complete the study in early 2024 with congressional approval later the same year. From then, we will go into what we call pre-construction engineering and design, where we work out some of the finer details of how we'll complete the project. We then anticipate construction starting in 2027 with an anticipated end in 2029. So that is most of our presentation. Just a reminder on how to submit comments on this document. The email here, Oakland Harbor Turning Basin Study at usace.army.mil. Be used to submit comments via email, or you may mail comments to Mr. Eric Jolliffe, 450 Golden Gate Avenue, 4th floor, San Francisco, California, 94102. And a reminder that the deadline for submitting comments is this coming Friday, June 16th. I'm going to turn this over to Laura, who will be facilitating our question period. If you have questions about the presentation or the study.
I see a show of hands and we'll name them, and for that matter, want to call out people for questions prior to jumping into the public comment portion. So I have Sam Wilson as a first. Sam, would you like to ask a question?
Thank you for the opportunity, but I'm here to give public comment later. Thank you.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you. Ben Grundy, are you still here? I saw your show of hand previously, and so I'm calling on you to see if you'd like to ask a question. Ben Grundy. No. Next is Brian Beveridge. Hi, Brian. Do you have a question, or would you like to, or was that more for public comment? Next, I have Elizabeth Dion. Saw Elizabeth Dion's name or hand raised previously. Does Elizabeth Dion have a question? And then next I have Todd Benson. Does Todd Benson have a question here?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I'm a pastor at a congregation in West Oakland. So do I understand correctly that this will not increase the traffic at the port, and this will, according to what you're saying, and so there will not be an increase in trucks coming in and out of the port? Do I understand that correctly based on your analysis? That's how you see it.
Thank you for that question, Todd. Does someone from the team here, can you address it and answer it?
Yeah, I can. Excuse me. This is Eric Jolliffe with the Corps. So long term, it's not going to increase truck traffic. That would be because it's not anticipated to increase throughput through the port. It's just a more efficient way of dealing with what's coming through the port. But what will happen is in the short term, there will be increased truck traffic during construction because we'll be hauling off some construction debris, and some of the fill will be hauled overland to landfills. But long term, it's not expected to increase truck traffic.
Thank you.
And Sasha, did you have anything to add as well?
No, I didn't have anything to add. That was pretty spot on. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, Laura.
Okay, so that looks like the final. I want to mention that
Excuse me, my hand's up, Miss
Oh,
Margaret. My hand's
I
been up for a
apologize.
while.
Oh, I apologize, Miss Margaret. This is Laura here. I'm looking through just the list here. Please go right ahead.
First of all, where did the list come from?
Oh, I'm looking at the attendee list, people who are zoomed on, and looking at the hands raised.
Well, my hand was raised.
I'm sorry.
It may be a black hand, a brown hand. You might not see it.
Oh yeah, you're on as Brian Beveridge. Okay, and I thought.
How did my name get to be? Well, first of all, I'm very annoyed that y'all took 25 minutes of an hour meeting for introduction and presentation. There's 41 people here wants to give comment. All of us will not be able to have a comment. So this is lopsided already.
Miss Margaret, this is Erica. This is not, I know that it was an announcement that went out early on that this was going to be a 1 hour meeting, but the team is committed to staying as long as necessary to provide any clarifications and to address.
Okay, Erica, when did y'all send out that? I've been online all day long. I haven't seen anything like that.
Miss Margaret, all of the subsequent meeting or announcements that went out just said the meeting was at 6 p.m. and that's what we have on our website. My apologies for the miscommunication that it was an hour on that first announcement that went out. So yes, we are here to stay to listen to comments and to record them. So apologies for that miscommunication.
I think it's a misinterpretation when Mr. Jolliffe says that there will not be any truck traffic increase. Between the hours of 12 and 1, trucks queue up every day to get inside the gate because between 12 and 1, ILWU members go have lunch. So is he saying that having this is something that's going to stop happening, and trucks are not going to be queued up back to back all the way into the neighborhood trying to get to inside the gate?
I'm gonna suggest that Justin Tashik address that. This is a port-related question.
Sorry,
I guess,
I'm just finding.
go ahead,
Oh.
Justin. I wasn't able to speak before, but go ahead, Justin.
Oh, if you want to go, I'm trying to find my camera here.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I had a question earlier, and that was, has there been any, have you all done any research, or has there been any research to suggest that when ports are prepared, upgraded for bigger ships, that it doesn't attract more ships? This is a really important question to the community. If you talk to a traffic engineer, there's guaranteed, and there's plenty of evidence and research that says if you add a lane to a freeway in order to deal with congestion, within 8-10 months, that lane will be filled with more cars. So this is one of the parts of both the needs assessment, saying, well, it's just us digging holes, don't worry about it, and the actual impact assessment, where it seems to be just trust us on it. We don't think anything bad will happen. But you're not offering any actual evidence or research data or anything to suggest that building a port bigger to allow bigger ships won't attract more bigger ships, which leads to more traffic, cargo congestion, and more truck traffic. So that's a really, there's a lot of just statements where y'all are just saying, well, that's how it'll be. It won't be a problem. But we're looking for the evidence that you have that it won't be a problem. Do you have any?
This is Sasha. I can go ahead and try to answer that question. 1 second, please. So the growth depends on the demand for goods and services, right? So growth is pretty much correlated with global supply and demand rather than the width of your turning basins. However, we do agree that it is important to provide evidence to back up that claim. And we will be including that in our report and our discussions going forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Sasha. Miss Laura?
Yes, again, just going through the list of questions here and the people. Just so everyone knows, I'm going through the raised hands for questions. After raised hands, if anyone has a question in the chat, we'll take those following by verbal and raised hands. I have Jay Lasan, who's also raised their hand. Jay, do you have a question? And if you can unmute yourself.
I'm unmuted. This is Jay.
Okay.
Thanks for taking my question about the presentation. There was something about the year of 2030 that something was supposed to be completed by that time with electrification. Could you please clarify what that is that's going to happen in 7 years? Electrification of, it was near the end of the presentation.
Yeah.
It wasn't on that graph. It was.
It's on the greenhouse gas slide.
Cleaner burning engines in dredges starting after 2030. So that means there are going to be 7 years, the next 7 years, where they're going to be dirty old burning engines. I just wanted to kind of get a clarification around that. Thank you. I'll leave the rest of my comments for the feedback period. I just wanted to clarify that for the next 7 years, they're going to be dirty old engines that are going to continue to not only continue, but to increase with the increased work that is proposed. 7 years of that. So for example, a child that's born in West Oakland at age 0, then it wouldn't be till they're 7 years old. Just, that's enough. Thank you. Just wanted to confirm that.
Yeah. I do want to emphasize that the greenhouse gas emissions analysis is done on current conditions based on a no action alternative and what we expect with our alternatives. We did not incorporate an expected reduction in the future due to this cleaner burning engines starting after 2030. So that was just a note, but you would expect to see a reduction across all alternatives. The primary thing here is that we have higher emissions under the current conditions than if we widen the basins and allow more efficient ingress and egress of the turning basins.
I did want to point something out, Laura and Jessica. I believe Miss Margaret had asked a question, and I'm not sure that it was answered. So I know we have a Q&A after the mic, but can we? Miss Margaret, I answered your question about 1 hour versus, longer than 1 hour meeting.
Yes, I got that question. I got it.
Okay.
I understand what you said.
Okay. All right. We just wanted to make sure that any question you had right now was addressed before we went into the comment period. All right, Miss Laura, I'm handing it off to you again.
Great, thank you. Thank you. I have gone through a list of names and we have, I think Jay Lasan just provided the last question. If we've answered that question, I see no other hands. And I also don't see any further questions in the chat. And so this is the last call for questions around the information that was just presented. I see Brian Beveridge's hand raised again. Can you unmute yourself and come to the mic, Brian? Was that a question?
It's a question.
There you are.
I don't have any way to unmute myself.
We could hear you.
Oh, okay, great. Okay. I didn't see anything that said I could unmute myself. So great. Okay. All right. I thought there were a bunch more folks here who would have comments. I suppose they're already embedded in the
Well, just to make clarification on that, we're doing the questions. So no one's done a comment yet, or
no one's done comments yet. Okay.
We haven't
All right.
segued to that just yet.
Okay. Well, let's move on to comments. I'll take my hand down.
Okay. Okay. So that was our last. Again, it was Jay Lasan who asked the last question. I see no other hands. And now we will take the queue of public comment. I have, and I will put in the chat so that everybody is aware of who was in the queue. We'll take that in order. So I have Sam Wilson, our first person, Ben Grundy, our second, Brian Beveridge, third, fourth is Elizabeth Dion, and Jay Lasan is our fifth one. So Sam, we're inviting you to unmute yourself. If you're still there, could you kindly unmute yourself?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you so much.
Sam, we just know that we are also in the public comment portion of this meeting, and you will see a timer go on. And if anyone wishes to provide comment beyond 2 minutes, we can do so following the queue. Thanks so much.
And Laura, I also wanted to add that if at the end of the comment session, there are folks that need additional 2 minutes, we're happy to provide additional opportunities, but we just want to make sure everyone that's here today gets an opportunity to comment before we give anyone else a second chance to speak. Okay. Thank you.
This is Sam Wilson. Can I begin?
Yes, Sam, please proceed.
Excellent. Hey, thanks so much. My name is Sam Wilson. I'm a senior vehicles analyst with the Union of Concerned Scientists based here in the Bay Area. We are a national nonprofit organization that advocates for rigorous independent science to solve our planet's most pressing problems. UCS has some significant concerns regarding any plan with a potential to facilitate increased container throughput through the port prior to full electrification of the port and drayage operations, and without direct and meaningful consultation with the West Oakland community. For far too long, the port's neighbors have experienced significant and widespread negative health impacts from trucks and ship-related pollution. The California Air Resources Board 2008 health impact assessments for West Oakland found that residents were subject to significant disproportionate high risks from cancer from diesel particulate emissions at a rate of about 1,200 excess cancers per million. So of this, about 70% of this risk was contributed by trucks. And although the port has made some progress in reducing operational emissions, the community most definitely still continues to experience some of the worst air quality in the nation. In its draft report and assessment, the Corps asserts that widening the turning basin is not going to increase container throughput. However, allowing ultra-large vessels to call on the port is most certainly a key piece of enabling increased container throughput. So like vessel size, call frequency, and handling capacity are all facilitators of this, and they should be treated as such. Given that over 90% of the containers handled in the port are done by drayage trucks, any study on the facilitators of cargo capacity should examine the potential to affect increased drayage runs and resulting negative health outcomes of increased air pollution. We request that the Corps revise its assessment to better consider the holistic air quality impacts from this project. And thanks for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Sam. We have next in the queue, Ben Grundy. Ben, I will ask you to unmute yourself.
Great. Thank you so much for, sorry, go ahead.
No, please go right ahead.
Oh, perfect. Well, thank you for the opportunity to provide comment. My name's Ben Grundy, and I am an Alameda resident, but I'll soon be moving to Oakland where I work. I'm actually a representative with the Center for Biological Diversity. And firstly, I'd like to say that this expansion project doesn't seem to align with the sustainable future that California and the Bay Area is trying to move towards. California's commitment to fight the climate crisis is something that's not only in the interest of the state's unique ecosystems and wildlife, but it's also in the interest of the communities that exist in California, but are specifically are in the Bay Area. And every community has a right and deserves clean air, and residents in West Oakland are already experiencing toxic air pollution due to port activity. And emissions from the vehicles and vessels in and around the port are harmful to public health, and this project seems to be something that would increase emissions, making the public health crisis even worse. So I believe that a full environmental impact statement that accurately analyzes the air quality impacts is definitely needed to inform and protect residents in West Oakland and also in neighboring communities. And in addition to the risks that are facing communities and the communities are dealing with, this expansion project is also something that impacts our environment and poses ecological risks. And efforts to expand the basins will affect wildlife and disturb marine ecosystems, whether it's noise pollution or the planned introduction of even larger ships fueled by heavily polluting fossil fuels. The species that call the port in San Francisco Bay home will experience disruptions. Furthermore, the Corps also hasn't provided information on where the majority of those dredged materials will go. So again, the Corps needs to revisit its environmental analysis and produce a full environmental impact statement. The frontline communities near the port and also the local wildlife deserve protections from these harms. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. I have next in the queue, Brian Beveridge. Brian, I'm gonna, you are unmuted. I could see. Please go right ahead.
Okay. Other people may have this comment. But we have data that suggests calculations that suggest that these large ships are cleaner when they're under normal power, transiting the Pacific Ocean, but they're actually much dirtier when they have to operate at low speeds in the Bay Area, in San Francisco Bay, and that isn't calculated. It doesn't appear to be calculated in your review. So can you speak at all on that, or are you able to speak during comment period? Perhaps you can't. We would like to see the calculations for vessel speed and emissions for these mega ships, because we don't think it's reflected properly in the analysis. Thank you.
And thank you, Brian, for your comment. We have next in the queue, Elizabeth Dion. Elizabeth, I believe you are unmuted. Please go right ahead. Is Elizabeth Dion here with us? Okay, we can come back to Elizabeth Dion. I don't see Elizabeth logged on. Elizabeth Dion might have logged off. In the event that Elizabeth rejoins, we will put Elizabeth back in the queue. Next, I have Jay Lasan. Jay?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you for taking my comment. That it's been said that the megaships already do visit the port, but rarely. And I agree with others said that expanding the turning basins would only invite them to be visiting the port more often, which could make for a bottleneck in cargo and truck idling and traffic in West Oakland and other communities. And this is all diesel. The port should be electrifying all of its equipment before it undertakes more expansion. And apparently other California ports already have electrification goals. And I haven't heard that the port is doing so. Seems to be more interested in inviting in the larger ships. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay, for your comment. I have Fern. Fern next in the queue. Could you kindly unmute yourself?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Thank you. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Fern, and I'm a resident of Oakland. I'm also a policy advocate at the Environmental Defense Fund, and have been working with West Oakland Environmental Defense Project and others for 6 to 7 years now. I also remain concerned about the Army Corps' assumption that widening the turning basin will not increase ship or truck traffic. I think the analysis, the conclusion that there will be no induced demand is an unrealistic assumption. And although I feel like the conversation has really been about the causal direction of growth, whether the widening basin would induce growth versus if something else is. But these are all assumptions, and we're saying that we have a different assumptions that seem to be born by realities of other ports that have widened their basins and we've seen correlated growth. I think it's also disingenuous of Army Corps to assume that any cargo growth is independent of the project when we consider that the port is undertaking other efforts to actually expand port operations, namely the redevelopment of the outer harbor to be a new terminal. The port's own estimate also assumes that container volume will more than double between now and 2050. So there is growth coming, and I think it is unrealistic to assume that having a wider basin that will facilitate greater probability of larger ships coming into the port of Oakland is not going to happen. And therefore, I urge the Army Corps to withdraw the revised report. Don't finalize an environmental review document, and please develop a full environmental impact statement as required under the impact. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Fern. We have
Laura, before you continue, this is
go right
Erica.
ahead.
There's someone that's not muted, and they're tearing paper, and I think it's
Must be
causing
me.
background.
It must be
Oh.
Brian. I have no way to mute or unmute myself. So you guys.
Oh, we'll mute you, Brian. No worries.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Laura.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that. Next, we have Marie Logan. Marie Logan, kindly unmute yourself.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Hi there, thanks, Laura. Hello, everyone. My name is Marie Logan. I'm here with Earth Justice, together with West Oakland Environmental Indicators Project. And I wanted to provide comments to the Corps and the Port on the plan to expand the turning basins. I'm here tonight because we're concerned that the Corps and the Port have not been adequately consulting with the local community about a project that could worsen air quality, harm environmental justice communities who live adjacent to the port, and cause ecological harm to the San Francisco Bay. We already have a public health crisis in West Oakland due to diesel emissions from the trucks, trains, and ships at the port. And that's what led to the West Oakland Community Action Plan that was created pursuant to AB 617. So there's a few things I wanted to share tonight. First, the environmental analysis in this report is flawed. I heard mention earlier of the 2.2 million cubic yards of sediment that the Corps expects to dredge, but the Corps did not identify where 95% of those sediments are going to go, nor has it analyzed any of the impacts outside of the basins themselves. I heard someone asking earlier about truck traffic, but the Corps did not analyze potential truck traffic impacts at all in this report. This project to expand the basins has been pushed through without meaningful engagement with the local community, without conversation about possible mitigation measures or alternatives to the project. And the Corps only gave a 4-day extension on the comments after releasing over 1,200 pages of material. So the Corps is not living up to the Biden administration's recently issued executive order on environmental justice. Finally, I just want to point out, we know that the Port is here tonight as a partner in this project, and we want to urge the Port to prioritize electrifying its equipment and its operations, including cargo handling equipment and trucks, instead of pursuing these expansion plans. So tonight I'm asking the Corps to withdraw the draft report and produce a full environmental impact statement that accurately analyzes all of the foreseeable impacts of this project. Thank you.
And thank you for your comment, Marie. Next in the queue is Katrina Thomas. Excuse me, Katrina, could you kindly unmute yourself?
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can. Go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. My name is Katrina Tomas, and I'm an attorney with Earth Justice. I wanted to highlight some of the ecological risks and the dredging impacts that the Corps overlooks in this revised draft report. Expanding the basins will disturb marine and coastal ecosystems, threaten local wildlife, and impact the Bay Area's water quality. But throughout its response to comments, the Corps dismisses these concerns by arguing that species are not present in the project area. This is extremely misleading and honestly a bit nonsensical. The Corps can only come to this conclusion because the Corps focuses its analysis on a really narrow 1 mile radius. So while there might not be whales or fish in the training basins themselves, the water immediately adjacent to the project does contain these species. We see the same flawed analysis when we're looking at landside impacts. The 1 mile radius excludes a lot of neighborhoods and communities that would be impacted by air quality and other issues in the greater project scope. Turning back to species and water quality, longfin smelt and green sturgeon have critical habitat in the Bay Area, and there's plenty of documentation of whales in the Bay Area too. In fact, last month, a ship strike killed a whale near Point Reyes. But the Corps uses its narrow scope of the project area to downplay the impacts of dredging, ship strikes, oil strikes, and noise impact to regional wildlife. As others have noted today, the Corps fails to offer concrete information about where most of the dredge sediment will go. And this is really perplexing because the Corps had no trouble identifying the Kettleman Hills landfill to handle the more contaminated, potentially hazardous waste coming from dredging here. The Corps is planning to remove this hazardous waste from one overburdened community, the West Oakland community, to another, the predominantly Latino communities adjacent to Kettleman Hills. And this is troubling because the Corps doesn't analyze these impacts, which it should. I urge the Corps to start again and release an environmental impact statement for all of these reasons, and it needs to fully analyze the project's impacts. I also want to elevate that I want to make sure that Ms. Margaret Gordon gets the opportunity to comment. I think her hand was raised before and I didn't see her in the chat too. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Katrina Thomas. Yes, we do have Ms. Margaret in the queue. We've captured her both. Ms. Margaret, could you kindly unmute yourself? Can you hear us? I'm asking you to unmute yourself, or you should see a prompt.
Yeah, excuse
there
me.
We go.
I'm sorry. All right. I'm sorry. I spoke already. Let Jenny go before me.
Oh, okay. Okay, we'll do that. Let me find Jenny. Jenny Matson, could you kindly unmute yourself?
Yeah, and thank you, Miss Margaret. I would have rather you would have gone before me. So I just found out about this a couple of hours ago and have been reading, in addition to hearing your presentation, been trying to read through the April document. I got a degree in geology a long time ago, in the 80s. But I can read this just quickly enough to know that if you're moving one of the basins that you're going to widen to closer to Schnitzer Steel, the document clearly says you know that there's going to be contamination there, and that you're then going to dry it out at the Port of Oakland itself. I mean, you're talking about diesel exhaust as a pollution, but that seems to me to be a big particulate matter problem. But I also know that the Oakland Harbor it's cleaned out by tidal action, so it doesn't become filled with sediment and need to be cleared every year. But that means that whatever you're stirring up there is going to go out to the rest of the bay. I'm a resident in San Leandro now. I know that this is going to affect the bay. And I see mitigation written all over this, and it's not mentioned anywhere in the document. And I know the Army Corps of Engineers knows a lot more about this. And if those contaminated sediments they will not go, according to this document, into any wetlands. But the particulates that are stirred up in the bay will. So that's the only comment I've come up with so far. But I just think that this is a bad idea. It took 11 years for you to want to increase the size of the turning basin. And I get bigger vehicles, more money, but this could harm the rest of the bay. So I can be done now. Thank you.
And thank you for that, Jenny Madsen. We have Ms. Margaret Gordon.
Oh, Jenny, thank you very much. I must say, you gave everybody a real orientation and education that we have not had. And that's part of the problem, that the Corps has not really done its homework because they don't seem to want to talk about health. They don't want to seem to talk about mitigation, and they definitely not transparent or accountable about how to be more cooperative and a collaborative manner to do community education, not public education, because this is about a neighborhood. This is also about a neighborhood. So community engagement, y'all need to do some homework. But back to the issue of this pollution, I do not see how an extra 500, 600 trucks between the hours of 1 p.m. to about 4 p.m. will not cause traffic congestion. I don't see it. Based on my experience of living in this neighborhood since 1992 and have invested a lot of time at the port for over 27, at least 27 years. So I'm just saying, I do not, without the traffic study, and also at the end of all this, there's no air monitors at the port. You've been modeling for years. We need much more data and talk about mitigations and about emission reduction. There's nothing that says that y'all have turned that corner to have a real meaningful discussion, conversation, or dialogue for this project. I'm done.
Thank you, Ms. Margaret. We have next in the queue, Ann Harvey. And I also see that Ann Harvey will be followed by Brian Beveridge. Ann Harvey, could you kindly unmute yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm a resident of Oakland. I just wanted to respond. I know someone else did also, but to the assertion that facilitating more mega ships that will each carry more containers to come into the Port of Oakland would not increase container traffic because the demand for the products is independent of the Port of Oakland. But I do not think that makes sense, at least on a couple of grounds. And one is containers can come into the country through various ports. They're not, and if the Port of Oakland is more attractive to the mega ships, we're likely to get more of those containers coming through Oakland. Also, there could be even an impact on demand if it's the efficiencies of scale with these mega ships carrying containers makes the products slightly cheaper to buy. So I really think that it makes no sense at all to say we're going to increase our capacity for mega ships with more containers, and this is not going to impact the already heavily impacted West Oakland neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne and Harvey. Next in the queue is Brian Beveridge. Brian, we've asked to unmute you. You should see a prompt to unmute yourself.
Thank you.
Great.
Great comments, everyone. I'm going to talk about the process. You put up a timeline up there, and it said, "Oh, we're here, and then we're going to be there, and then we're going to do something else." NEPA. Once you finish this process, you go to you're going to go to the Congress and say, "Give us the money," and you're expecting them to give you the money in 2024, but you haven't been through CEQA yet. And when you go through CEQA, it's very likely that your project will be adjusted. And then you'll have to go back through and rethink NEPA and go ask Congress again. So this whole process is either intentionally designed to exhaust the public, so we'll just quit trying, or is ill-designed in a way that it's just going to have to circle back on itself, and we all wind up in the same position we are right now a year from now. It seems kind of senseless not to have combined NEPA and CEQA into one process so that you get to the end of public comment incorporated into your final total plan, and then you go ask Congress for money. I don't understand why you would do it in a way that creates additional work for all of us. And I wish that, the Corps as a federal agency, as Ms. Margaret said, would get a little more education about how to do this engagement with the community. Because it's very difficult. This meeting itself is so locked down and so controlled so that nobody will speak out of turn. And we can't even tell who among our neighbors are on this call. I have no idea who's on here. Only the people who've chosen to speak up. We don't know if there's 10 people and they've all spoken, or if there's 50 community members and they're just not speaking. This is a very controlled process, and it's designed to make sure that the public is kept in their place.
Thanks for your comment, Brian. I see no other hands in the queue. If anyone wishes to provide a comment, please raise your hands and we will ask to unmute yourself. And I do see Aaron Wimberly and Ann Harvey. So I will take Aaron Wimberly followed by Ann Harvey. Aaron, could you kindly unmute yourself?
Hey, Lauria, thank you for the time. My name is Erin Wimberly. I'm on here. I work for a nonprofit called CalStart in community engagement and equity. And yeah, I just wanted to Brian's point, this meeting is really hard to see who all is on here, which does make it really hard to coalition build and to keep track of like who's saying what, which is always my purpose in coming to these meetings, to see like what folks are saying, what organizations they represent, so that we can make sure that we're elevating those voices and not working against them as we try and electrify. So just wanted to kind of like raise that up again, and then just thank everyone who has spoken up against about just the health impacts of putting in more ships and more commerce in a place where folks have been asking for less commerce and more peace and quiet. So I just wanted to make myself known, since that does seem to be kind of like an issue with having these kinds of webinars where you can't see everyone. And then just also thank everyone for their comments. And yeah, so thanks for the time. I'll give the rest of these 30 seconds back to y'all.
And thank you, Erin, for your comments. I did see Ann Harvey's hand show up. I wondered if that was from your previous comment or if this is new. If you'd like to provide a new one, Please go right ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just, I left off one thing that I wanted to say following that thought in my other comment, which is, it's not that other port communities that are also impacted should have more traffic and Oakland should have less, but I understand that the Port of Oakland is actually really lagging in electrification of all the onshore vehicles and also of the ships in the harbor. So we really do need to get ahead on stopping all of the onshore diesel and other fossil fuel burning before we increase traffic here. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next in the queue is William Dow. William, could you kindly unmute yourself? William, we have asked to unmute your microphone and you are next in the queue. Let's see, William might have some technical issues. Let's see. In the meantime, we will move over to Nori. Nori, you are in the queue. Could you unmute yourself?
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, my name is Nori Griffin. I live and work in West Alameda. My husband works in West Oakland and my son attends high school in downtown Oakland. So we are surrounding really the Port of Oakland issue and are aware of concerns of the neighboring communities. And I just want to agree with what I have heard several other commenters state about concerns about potentially increased shipping and truck traffic, vehicular traffic, even if it's true, and I'm not sure that I believe this is true, but even if it were true that what drives increased throughput would be increased demand, I would say that first of all, I think the entire model of our economy is to increase demand, so we could expect that to continue. And then I believe that if currently this increasing throughput idea is to solve the problem of ships that can't get through as quickly, but if we are then faced with more ships, even more ships that want to get through because of increasing demand, there's no reason that we wouldn't then end up where we are today with increased throughput, but still more ships hanging around and blocking smaller vessels and idling more and spewing out more emissions in the bay. So I agree that, increasing capacity has a potential to increase volume. I would really like to see that more thoroughly explored. I do think it potentially has a huge impact on public health, which is already so severely impacted. And it's just not fair. And I expect better due diligence and just better transparency to the community. In addition, I do have concerns about, the environment, wildlife, and as the geologist commenter brought up, the loosening of, toxic particles that then start to flow around the bay. Here in Alameda, of course, our beaches attract a lot of people, not just here from parts of the East Bay that get really warm, people looking for relief. People need to be able to go into the water, feel safe, feel comfortable. And so I would really like to see that addressed as well. Thank you for taking my comment.
Thank you for your comment. We will still try and go back to William Dow. William Dow, if you can hear us, please unmute yourself.
I'm trying to, it just won't work.
Okay, we can hear you.
Oh, can you? Okay,
Yes.
good.
No,
I was trying to figure out how to work this phone. My comment is just going to be simple. My name is William Dow. I'm a member of ILW Local 6, retired. And all I want to say is your first meeting that you had in person, and like one other person said there about people getting together, I think you ought to hold them in person also. And that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. And let's see, William Dow was the last show of hands. If anyone wants to provide a comment, please raise your hand. Currently, there is no one with their hand raised. And so we can wait a moment for any hands to raise. Erica, there are no show of hands. There's no longer a queue.
Okay. Thank you so much, Laura. And thank you everyone for your comments and requests for clarification. This helps us a lot actually to make sure that what you're reading is what we're intending to say and that we provide all the detail that tells the story. And it's all every day to see or not see. So we really appreciate your time and your comments. Could you put up the slide that shows how to submit comments, Laura? I mean, or Justin? So as we indicated earlier in the introductions, Justin is with the Port of Oakland, and he is available to, if you want him, we have the, more specifically, the study website, the Oakland Harbor Turning Basin Study website, and the email to submit your comments, Oakland Harbor Turning Basin Study at usac.army.mil, or you can mail the old-fashioned way to Mr. Eric Jolliffe at the address shown there. You can go to the Port of Oakland's website. It'll send you to the Corps' website where you can access the study. Again, I want to remind folks that Appendix A10, which is in 3 sections, has responses to comments received from the previous study. And you probably will be, a lot of the comments that we heard today can probably be addressed in that by going there. We also have the executive summary, page 6, which shows the differences between the previous release and this release. I think folks didn't have access to that at our in-person meeting on February 15th. So hopefully you'll find that helpful. And this webinar is recorded and it will be available to you. And we really do appreciate all of your input. It makes our job easier. I don't know if I see a comment there, Laura. Someone put something in the chat box.
Let's see. Okay.
Okay, I see. Yeah. So it's you can definitely go to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers website, which is the link is right there, spnusac.army.mil. You can actually just Google Oakland Harbor Turning Basins as well, and it'll pop up. Thank you so much, Sam, for your comment as well. So please feel free to reach out. There's the Oakland Harbor Turning Basin Study email, which, there's several of us monitoring it. So if you have any questions or one way to reach. And I think that's about it. Does anyone, Justin or anyone report anything else? If not, we're going to say good night, and we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate the same. Thank you all for staying with us tonight. We went extended for everybody here, and certainly appreciate everybody doing the same. So thank you for valuable comments shared tonight. And with that, we'll close the meeting. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you.